Call the Township Committee meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting notice on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by emailing a copy of the notice to the Press of Atlantic City, Atlantic County Record, Record Journal, and current newspapers stating this meeting would take place at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014, in the municipal building, Mays Landing, New Jersey. Mrs. Dix?
Present.
Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mayor Silva?
Here. I'd like to take a moment of silence for private reflection. First item on the agenda is Hamilton Township honors and remembers its veterans presentation to Roger C. Laney. Raj, would you come up front, please? Nicole, would you join us up? And Assemblyman Brown, please. Roger,
Go up to the mic.
yeah, they all stood back here. Follow me. Roger, this is Township of Hamilton honors and remembers its veterans, and this is presented to you in recognition of service of the United States Army in the name of freedom and democracy. So I want to present this with you, but I also like, at the same time, I'd like Rodney to read a little bit out of it. Okay?
Certainly. Mr. Laney is originally from Buffalo, New York area. He joined the Army in January of '66 at the height of the Vietnam War. I might say I came in '66 also, and I was up in Rome, New York, not too far from Vietnam. And I went to Vietnam. Mr. Laney completed basic training at Fort Dix here in New Jersey. He served as a military police as well as in operations, and I worked with the military police. He was stationed in several strategic locations, including assignments in Laos and Cambodia. In 1970, Mr. Laney entered the inactive reserves. Same here I did. He was honorably discharged as an E3 in private first class in January 1972. 44 years ago, Mr. Laney and his new bride, Darlene, decided to make their home in the Township of Hamilton. Mr. Laney has a long career in law enforcement. He worked 24 years in the Atlantic County Jail. Now he's retired and an active member of my folks.
Good.
All right, thanks. Congratulations.
Mr. Laney, Ms. Laney, it's an honor for me, on behalf of the General Assembly of the State of New Jersey, to present you with a certificate thanking you for your service. Too often our veterans may go unnoticed, and that's why I appreciate what this committee does, the mayor does, and everybody here in Hamilton Township does, to thank everyone for their service and all that you do. So it was an honor for me, and thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thanks again, Roger.
Legs don't scare people away.
What do you say? The legs don't scare people?
Charlie wanted that sheet.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is adjourn into executive session, and we will later in the agenda, you'll see that. And there's no confirmation at this time of an executive session. And next item is the addition and deletion of late items for consideration tonight. And the one addition that wasn't on your sheet was crosswalk, so
So we
We're
don't,
deleting that.
we don't
we're
wanna-
deleting, no, we're deleting it, correct.
And do we need to add a legislative update agenda item?
Well, we can, before we start off,
do
did
it.
you wanted to give a little update? All right, why don't we just we'll get that in, and before we start the discussions, if there's no early public comment, and if there is, I'll put you right on after that. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so I move all of that.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mike? No early public comment? Mr. Assemblyman, please.
I'll be
It's all right.
brief, but Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on what's happening. Just so everyone knows how hard your governing body is working on certain road items, they are constantly in communication with my office and our office as well.
That's what you want to call it?
And our office has been in pretty constant communication with Assistant Commissioner John Case. And we're at a point now where I believe, working with the BA, we have we better identified 4 issues. And we are trying to work together to get the information so that once we know that the municipality and the state all understand what it is everyone's trying to accomplish, we can bring everybody together so that the meeting isn't just an introductory meeting where, hi, I'm so-and-so, what's your problem? Okay, let's go look at it. Let's try and honestly get some answers for you. So that has been my goal. That's basically the update where it stands right now. And if anybody had any questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I just appreciate you giving me a chance to let you know.
Chris, we appreciate it. I think there may have been some misunderstanding in several of the letters because the correspondence came back that they said they have to do a traffic study and that there would be a 25% charge for it. Initially, when we had asked to look at some of them, like New York Avenue and McKee Avenue, it was strictly over the timing of the lights. And I think if you can convey that message directly to them, please, that if they just came down and sat there, they would see the difficulty that the traffic has coming through and the time it takes them and how quick the light turns.
Well, and that sounds great. And what I'd hope is your administrator can just put exactly what your governing body wants and sum it up for me so I can relay that to them. So it's not just Chris Brown saying, I heard something at a meeting, but it's official. Sure. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Chris, Michael, the last letter we sent up there was the one, the opening paragraph talks about the timing of the lights, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Assemblyman.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate
everybody.
your
Before he
presence.
goes, Chris, before your visit here 2 months ago and before that letter started, I had already been in communication with an engineer named Patel at DOT exactly about the timing of the light at New York Avenue because of the complaints that I was getting. But I have heard nothing and seen nothing since. Actually, today I was trying to find out, I had called your office maybe over the last 2 weeks, once to find out if the meeting was being scheduled yet, but I've had no further information whatsoever. So my concern is whether Mr. Patel is already working on something to do with the timing, and because he might be, I don't know if he's in Cherry Hill or where he is on 290, by 295 and Route 70. I don't know if he's there and he doesn't know what's going on in Trenton. So we need to tie that together.
I agree. I didn't want to get too detailed, but I can give you what Assistant Commissioner Case has told me is that a developer for the Hamilton Commons Shopping Center, he wants them to assess the traffic impact on the highway under its permit. And that there's already an existing traffic study that would then have to be modified to create the municipal roadway. And they believe that once that's done, they can put something together that will work. So again, we're starting to get on the same page, and once we are on that same page, then I think somebody comes down here, either waits at the intersection or meets with the business administrator or the engineer, and they can fine tune it.
Well, but Hamilton Commons is the Black Horse Pike, and the original question was Route 40 and New York Avenue. And the issue,
I thought you said McKee Ave.
no, I didn't.
I did in the early, well, that was one of the streets.
But the issue now is the school buses are running again. And it's that intersection that's so difficult for buses to be making a turn
Are you talking about the no passing zone on Route
No,
40?
I'm talking about where if you're on Route 40, you try to make a right-hand turn into New York Avenue or making a left out of New York onto Route 40.
Is this the intersection of Route 599?
No. You know where the,
These are the ones that have been relayed to our office. So,
well, then you don't have my emails that I sent to your office.
Yeah,
I'll send them again tomorrow.
well, I would say this again.
I say that-
If everybody could work through your business administrator,
That would be great.
yes, and then I'm asking, I'm begging you, please concisely let me know exactly what your municipality wants. And then when I get that, I can better explain it to the state and get us all on the same page so we can facilitate a meeting and hopefully some progress.
Yeah, I think what happened, Chris, was Simpson had left his office,
Yes.
and they have an interim in there, and somewhere along the line, no one picked up on the earlier information that has been sent there. So hopefully now with the working strictly this way and consolidating everything and getting it to you, we can come to some solution.
I think you're right. I hope
Okay,
so.
good. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
And thank you for
Thanks,
your time.
Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good luck.
Chris. And Mr. Mayor, I do think when Mr. Brown was here previously, we had talked about, Rodney had stuff going on with the
Right.
SJTA, Citizens Advisory Council. I had some complaints about various state roadways. The rest of us had gotten various complaints, and we were all kind of working independently, and we made the decision to work through the administrator at that time. So I'm not sure why there is still a disconnect, but that was the approach we agreed to.
Well, hopefully now it'll be
I know
straight.
that Bob Campbell, who is the chairman of the local SJTA, did ask for a study of New York Avenue and 40. I don't know if he,
But that's the kind of stuff. that
Yeah, he's
committee
the,
charge
he's the
working
chairman of
in.
the Citizens Advisory Committee.
yeah.
And that was the comment I made, that they said they'd be happy to do the study, but they want us to pay for it now.
Right.
So I think we want to skip through the unnecessary type of paying for stuff that they could correct immediately, and then any long-term stuff, then we can get into the study, okay?
Okay.
Good.
But the SJTA is an authority of the state of New Jersey that is based in Vineland and is involved with traffic throughout the state of New Jersey, or southern New Jersey. So why, if they are asking for a study, would it be selected that one community in one county would be the one to pay for it? That doesn't even make sense to me.
You got me. With the budget shortages, they're trying to make up the shortfall wherever they can. You know them, they're crazy.
Yeah, but we need to throw it back on the SJTA.
Well,
that-
Not the
that it's there.
SJTA.
It was anybody who made a request to the state.
Well, I thought he
was
just
getting-
said that the request for a study was made by Campbell.
Yeah.
No.
He made a call, as the chairman of the Citizens Advisory Committee, he made a call to the state about that intersection and asked if it would be looked into. It was not a formal request.
Okay.
Okay, the next
Mayor?
item,
Take into consideration then when the Conifer project comes in, more than likely, they will have to do a traffic study, which will also encompass that New York Avenue Route 40 intersection.
it's a good point. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Next item on the agenda is discussions, formal action may be taken. The first item, A, vacation days in excess of the policy.
This is on the agenda because it was pulled off at the last meeting. I've given you each a proposed amendment to the vacation policy dated August 27th, and as a discussion for tonight. It's my understanding from conversations with Bob Samman that our policy manual is the equivalent of an ordinance. It is by the equivalent of law. So if there's a policy in the policy manual, it is duty-bound to be enforced. It can't be waived, or this policy, that policy, just waived. So we have a situation where over the years, possibly all the way back to 2009, is what Mr. Samman indicated to me, that the policy on carrying vacation time has been allowed to go beyond the boundaries of policy. So in order to handle the violation fairly and equitably to everybody who's involved, regardless of what their name is. It's not about people. Policies are about issues, not about people. So my proposal on this and I discussed it with Mr. Sandman. My suggestion to amend the vacation policy requiring forfeiture of unused vacation days would be employees with greater than 10 excess vacation days may exercise the option to sell back 50% of the excess days. The sellback days are understood to be days at risk of forfeiture. The sellback days shall be paid the first pay in December of 2014. Employees with greater than 20 excess vacation days after the sellback shall have until June 30th, 2016 to use the excess days. This amendment shall expire on June 30th, 2016. In parentheses at the bottom, I'm jogging Mr. Percy and Mrs. Anderson, because they were both here in 78, 79, 80. We had casinos opening and an influx of experienced employees taking all of our rental units. So the landlords jacked up the rents through the roof and through the sky, and caused Hamilton Township's sitting township committee at that time frame to adopt a rental control ordinance that was automatically expiring in 2 years. So that's the idea that I have, to amend a policy to cure a short-term problem and have it expire in 2 years. The other part of the issue is, and this is something that was done on talk radio in the last couple weeks, the people retiring in Atlantic City who never called out sick a day and came to work at $50 a day or at $500 a day, they're selling back at $500 a day. So we need to protect our taxpayers by not having long-term buildup of vacation time that would be paid out at the then current rate, as opposed to the employees who relied on the ability to defer vacation and carry the days, that they won't be penalized. They can get out of the situation by starting to use them or starting to sell them back. That's, in a nutshell, that is what we need to do, something to protect the employees and protect the taxpayers.
May I comment on that?
Please.
Mayor? Sticks, you did send us a letter, and I guess, what is this, a week and a half ago or so, where you made a couple of comments. One of which is absolutely unfair to taxpayers. We put in a situation where the, let me see.
It's unfair to stress.
They have to be where they have to pay out. Well, first of all, this payout issue, I'm not aware of any policy that requires us to pay out vacation time. Is there such a policy, Mr. Administrator?
Upon separation of employment.
Upon separation of employment, but that's vacation time that they have appropriately accrued. In this case, as I understand it, the policy manual, and by the way, we did discuss this, I thought, a couple of weeks ago. The policy manual indicates that up to a certain amount of leave can be accrued, and then if that's not taken, it's lost, is it not?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we've had some situations where employees have done that, where employees have accrued additional vacation time, and that could have been lost. But what should have been done is the administration typically, I know at least in the federal government, will advise the employees that unless they take this vacation time, it will be lost. I don't know whether or not that was done. If that was done and the employees chose to have that happen, then that happened. But in any event, you have addressed this issue, and I thought you briefed us on it at the last meeting. Wasn't it the last meeting, or was it?
This item was pulled off the agenda at the recommendation of the solicitor.
Okay, we were briefed on it anyway, and he advised what he did, but he took care of that problem, and as far as I know, I'm not sure of any issues that remain on this, or any complaints about the way it was handled. And the way it was handled was, I believe, that for the few employees who have accrued the additional time, they are required to take a minimum of 5 days per year until that time is used up. Is that not correct? So they are not losing the time.
Essentially, yes. They have to use it 5 days a year. They have to bring down the overage by 5 days a year.
And they can use more than 5 days if they so choose. So they're not losing anything.
Right.
This this talks about rumors about losing time. I'm not aware of those rumors.
Rodney, I explained that Mr. Sandman explained to me that policy is law. We're in violation of our own policy, and this is an attempt to cure it to protect the taxpayers and the employees. So it's not an arbitrary decision that anybody can make to give extensions of time in violation of policy. And I have right here, and this is part of what I gave you 11 days before the last meeting. That would have been August 7th. Here it is, revised May 2010. Employees may accumulate vacation days from 1 year to the next in an amount not to exceed the year's entitlement. That means, and that's the same thing that's in 2010.
I understand what that means, but if an employee does not take advantage of the
Then
time,
then they should.
that's not a violation of the ordinance.
It's
That
a
means they
violation of
just-
the policy. Mr. Sandman and I talked at length about this.
I don't know if the policy requires them to take the
couldn't-
vacation time. I'm not aware of that.
You were attempting to speak into the microphone.
Here's the issue in a nutshell. This is something that occurred before Michael Jacobs came here in large measure. And what happened is you had certain employees who did not use all of their vacation time in a particular year for reasons that were important to the township at the time. There were situations where a certain employee would have to be available for a weather event, for example. And he was not able to use, or she was not able to use, the amount of vacation time that our policy manual gives them. The way that the policy, and Aline is correct about this, that the policy was created by ordinance. Ordinance is law. And the policy as it currently stands says, if they are not taken in the subsequent year, they are forfeit. Now, this ties the hands of your administrator to be fair and equitable to those employees who were called into the line of duty at the request of the township and were not able to take advantage of vacation days. And then in subsequent years, for the very same reasons, were not able to use up those vacation days. But the law is clear. It says if they're not used in a subsequent year, they shall be forfeit. In my estimation, Mr. Jacobs tried to do what was fair and equitable, because you can't tell an employee you can't take a day off and then not have the advantage of using that as a future vacation day. That's equity. Aline's talking law. The law is clear. It shall be forfeit if it's not used. So the discussion is not aimed, as I understand it, at having those individuals who still have unused vacation time to be forfeit, but to create a mechanism in the policy manual to allow the business administrator some discretion. And that's, I think, the issue. So to be very succinct about it, what the discussion should be is, with respect to the remaining employees, because on a going forward basis, this is not a problem. This dates back. We're enforcing the ordinance as written now. So to my way of thinking, yeah, there's a legal way of looking at it, and you're bound by the law, and your employees are bound by your direction under the law. But there are equitable reasons sometimes to allow flexibility. So what is being suggested, as I understand it, is create some flexibility to allow this situation to work its way out over a finite period of time, and at the same time, continue to enforce the ordinance as written. That's the way I see it.
Is that not what the administrator did?
He doesn't have the authority to do it the way
That's
it's
exactly
written.
what they could do.
That's what I was going to ask. Mr. Solicitor, the administrator has that prerogative as the person who is offered the authority to manage our day-to-day to make that equity decision for employees. Is that accurate?
It is not.
Okay. So who would make that decision?
In order to endorse what has happened with respect to the folks that we're talking about, you could endorse what Michael has done, but you must do it by changing the policy manual to give the business administrator that authority.
Okay.
It does not have to be done today, but it should be done before the end of the year, so that the folks who work here on a going forward basis know what their options are.
Okay.
Okay?
Now, the sellback, as Arlene has suggested, wouldn't that cost us a lot of money?
Well, that was my question to Arlene. Do you have a proposed cost of what this might equate to?
Actually, Mr. Jacobs' contract allows him to sell back 10 days a year, so let me
No, no, no,
finish.
no.
Let me finish.
No.
So that was a starting point.
She just said Mr. Jacobs.
Let me,
She's asking me about selling back time. I'm
No, I
saying-
understand
Talk
that. The
about
question
people's
was, I'm not meaning to interrupt you. I am interrupting you for a reason. The issue of sellback may be a reasonable proposal on a going-forward basis. But right now, Hamilton Township has made and extended a position to certain people to use it or lose it by such and such a date. I don't think you can change that.
But there was no authority to do that.
It's true.
And that's not fair to the taxpayers, because if people move from one job to another and have different, this was the point that I put in here about talk radio and how somebody got hired at $50 a day and they're at $500 and they're selling back at $500. We're not talking about selling back at $500 here. We're talking about making the opportunity with the people with the gravest number of days to burn, especially if they're so vital they can't burn them, they're going to be at risk of forfeiture. So let's reduce that by letting them sell back some other number. I put 50% as a starting point to talk about it. So whether you want to make it 20%, 25%, 10 days, 15 days, we can pick a number. But certainly we need to protect the taxpayers by reducing this vacation time and give the employees the comfort level that they can sell back their time. It protects it. They still get their money, but they're not taking the day off anyway.
Aileen, when you talk about sellback, you're talking about giving out money from the township. And we have an ordinance on the books that says if you don't use your vacation days in 2 years, you forfeit them. Now, Mr. Jacobs has, excuse me?
Use them or lose them, he said.
Yeah, it's use them or lose them, and that's the same thing in the federal government at this point. It's
Corporate America.
Yeah, it's use them or lose them. But Mike has come up with a fair and equitable way of dealing with this, and I think that, the thing that we should do is, address that issue and give him that permission.
And in order to do that, you have
make
to
an amendment.
amend the policy and procedural manual to give certain discretion to the business administrator on circumstances like this. And in doing that, you could ratify that which he has already done with respect to existing employees and allow it to be exercised in the future under certain extraordinary circumstances. It is fundamentally unfair to say you can't take a day off for these days and not allow an employee to exercise his right to use all of his vacation time. To my way of thinking, it has nothing to do with the taxpayer, because that was a condition of the employment for that year, and partially because of the direction of government here, that person was unable to take it, and that was an expense in that year. And the fact that they're carrying over days into this year or next year is an expense that was already computed and derived a long time ago. So it's not, when you talk about buybacks, it's certainly a taxpayer item. But when you're talking about using unused vacation time, it is not. Okay, because you made your deal going in.
Right, and just to
That's right.
level set.
What do you mean you made your deal going in?
If you hired me today and I was allowed 5 vacation days, and my position was such that we had untoward incidences and I was unable to take my 5 days because I had to be here for that, and the same thing happened next year and I was unable to take it, my deal was, this year I get so many days. If I don't use them, it's next year I get them. If I can't use them in both years, I lose them under the current ordinance.
Correct.
But I lost them because my employer directed me to do so. It's fundamentally unfair. The easy answer is to consider amending the policy through an ordinance to give some discretion to the administrator consistent with that which he has just done on 4 isolated incidences.
I'd make a motion for exactly what you just said.
Bob, you
I have a
floor
motion
me.
on the
It's got
table.
You floor me.
Second?
I'm
A
sorry?
motion on the table.
Floor
Do I
me.
have a second?
Second?
Any other questions or comments to
Yes,
the
I
motion?
have a comment. If we're talking about changing the manual, which is effectively changing the ordinance, then I think perhaps we should reflect, have at least one period to reflect on what that specific wording should be. I think the administrator came up with an excellent choice this time, and I have no problem with it, and I think it satisfies the problem, quite frankly. But if the requirement is to change the manual, then I think we ought to reflect on it, at least for one session.
I agree. I think you should see the writing.
I do too.
It's
Yeah,
been a
I mean,
long cry of
but to just go
municipalities.
ahead with-
It's been a long cry of municipalities and government through the years that many people have accumulated untold days. And obviously, they came in at one salary level, and when they got out, they got these high payouts. I believe this municipality, as has the MUA and others like them, have locked in the maximum payout to be $15,000 when you leave.
It's 5,000 down there. It's
Well,
15
whatever-
here.
Whatever it is, Aileen, it still
But
brings
it's
the
not
amount down.
vacation time. That's sick time.
It brings down the amount of it, and what I think if you listen to the solicitor, it may be a point of law, but he also talked about something that could have been lost, and to be fair and equitable at this time, it makes the most sense. We have a motion on the table.
And I said to Sandman, you virtually told me not to make any reference to human beings. It's strictly a policy decision. And you sit there tonight referring to employees and who can't take off their time. We don't have a list. We don't know the names of the people. We don't know who didn't take their time because they couldn't versus who didn't. And I feel like I've been virtually hogtied here tonight because of the position you took after you made it clear to me last week when you called me not to be talking about people. We should be talking about policies and the right way to do policies to the benefit of the employees as well as to the taxpayers.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
I'm hogtied.
The only person who referenced an employee's name and started to go down the path
He's
of an
not on the
employee's
list.
employment agreement was Aline Dix about Mike Jacobs. And for the record, I think that is absolutely ridiculous as an elected official who has a responsibility to him. We should be rice noticing him if you're going to mention his name or employment agreement. Now,
Really? I don't think so.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Please.
I went from Bob to Sandman.
Still a solicitor, though, right?
I am.
And you have a
that's something I
song.
take very
Yeah, that's
seriously.
not
Mr.
very
Sandman.
respectful.
Nevertheless, I never mentioned an individual's name.
absolutely not.
I spoke in general terms, and I chose my words carefully. I do agree with Aline that it is a policy issue that needs to be referred to and referenced and amended, unless, because of what has happened, you're going to make these people forfeit the time that you made them spend.
And my motion, as you stated, and as I believe I heard you say, was a motion to draft a policy amendment to give discretion to the administrator for extraordinary circumstances such as these in particular, and memorialize kind of the plan that is in place via a policy change.
To extend the time to use unused vacation time
Motion is second.
in more than one subsequent year.
Correct.
You have a
And that was my motion, and that was what was
Second.
seconded.
question. Hold on, Rodney has a question to the motion.
Yeah, the only question is, it seems to me we're moving to say give the administrator discretion, and really don't have a problem with that, but I think we ought to make it more general and write the ordinance to address this issue. Whether it's the administrator or whether we specify how it's to be done, I think we should have that choice.
But it won't be an issue in the future because we have mechanisms in place now that this won't continue to be an issue.
Yeah, I totally agree with Amy Rothney on this. She has a very valid point.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Can we get a vote on the roll call motion, on the roll call on the motion, Mrs. Anderson, please?
Okay. Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatta?
Because the option that the administrator has been working for the last year and a half, at the point that the employees were notified, is cost neutral to the taxpayer because we are not paying anything out. It does not impact our budget. And because Ms. Dix did not propose an expected cost or where in the budget we would sell back these days, pay for the sell back in her proposed policy, I vote yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
I vote, well, first of all, I've seen no reference to payback at all until I heard Ms. Dix's comments. The manual as it currently is written for vacation time doesn't address that. She has addressed that. But for various reasons, I vote yes.
Mrs. Link?
I also vote yes. I do see this as a way of fairly giving back to those people who have been put on the spot to forego some vacation days, and it's budget neutral. I think the idea of sellback would, at least for the first year, would cost us over $20,000, and so on and so forth. So I vote yes.
Mayor Silva?
Before I vote, we're fortunate to have dedicated employees who step up to the plate when they know that their presence is required for various reasons, whether it's for an emergency or for other work. I think we got a very capable administrator who works out a fair and equitable solution to this. It's just unfortunate that we have to go through such extended dialogue before the public to try to resolve something that could have worked its way out very simple, and there wouldn't have been any real issue with this, so I vote yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item B, accept Remington and Vernick's proposal for preparation of an application for the 2015 NJDOT Trust Fund Municipal Aid Program to state aid, grant application at a cost of $900 with funding to come from the general engineering account. Mike, Ken, you want to make any comments about that?
Really nothing to add to that. It's a proposal to apply for the next phase of Malaga Road.
Fine.
So moved.
From the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
The motion is second. Any
Can I-
questions?
Yeah, there's a question. I just have.
Sure.
On your write-up, Mr. Smith, see, I think this is the one. No, this is not the one. It's the
5B.
next one. I'm sorry.
You all
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
That's okay, no problem. The motion is second. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Next item on the agenda, item C, accept Remington and Vernick's proposal for preparation of a preliminary environmental assessment on 6372 Beacon Avenue, Block 611, Lot 17, at a cost of $6,750 with funding to come from the operating budget. And that was changed from the original thing.
Was that just a typo, or?
We won't take engineering money from, we will take the demolition funds from the CDBG grant from several years ago. We didn't use it all up because some of the properties were torn down by the owners.
I make the motion.
Before we make a motion, Amy,
Got a
we
motion
need to
on
talk
its table.
about
I'll
this.
second it.
We need to
Motion
talk.
and a second.
We
Do we have
need
any
to talk.
questions or comments to the motion?
Absolutely,
Now you can make them.
absolutely.
Who seconded it before she
I
makes it?
I second it.
Thank you.
I was at this property on August 15th. I sent Mr. Sartorio an email on Saturday, August 16th, pointing out the information that I had learned the day before regarding used vehicles that are parked at the rear of the property, old tires and things that are holding water. And I don't know, when I spoke to Mr. Sartorio today, I didn't ask him if he had done anything with my email today. But obviously, this is an example of why we have to use such care in going to in-rem foreclosure on structures, because we now have what appears to be a problem property based on the neighbors who have lived in the neighborhood a long time, that there could be other issues. So I have a first issue that it's $6,000 to go look at a house, but what needs to be looked at maybe more than the house is going to be the tract. And I didn't look up on the taxes, the tax block and lot to see the size of the property.
1.9 acres.
But that entire situation is going to have to get looked at, not just what we have to do to tear down the structure. So I don't know that this proposal is the right proposal without somebody first going out and, as we talked, Bob, with Phillips Avenue, you got to go look at what's there in order to write the proposal. And I don't think this is going to be the right proposal. Regardless of the cost, it's not the right proposal.
At the last meeting, we were handed a packet of pictures that were taken of this address.
I think
I
it was
took
2
a
meetings
ride out there,
ago.
as you did, Aileen. You're not the only one that goes out to look at things.
Roger, I think it was about a month ago. It wasn't 2 weeks ago.
Whatever it was, we went out to look at it. Mr. Jacobs and I went to look at it, and it was appalling.
No question about
There
it.
had to be steps taken, and Bob, would you just digress a minute and go through what would happen at that property so people know exactly what we were faced with, and the fact that whether this is an appropriate estimate or not, sure, there's a lot of work that's in there. I told you, I remember 6 years ago when I spent with 20 students of Stockton College up in Mitzpah clearing up 3 30-yard dumpsters full of tires off a lot. It exists, Aileen. It happens. We happen to have this as an in-rem foreclosure, and for whatever reason we got it, there's a lot of work that has to be done. But would you please, Mr. Sandman, I know you did a lot of work on this, and it was quite a liability sitting there.
First of all, you have to understand the nature of the in-rem foreclosures. There have been years where there have been like 150 delinquent tax properties.
This year.
And the clerk certifies the properties as being delinquent, and you try to sell the tax sale certificate to a buyer to pay the taxes. When no one buys the tax sale certificate, I get a list of hundreds of properties, or 150 or 100, whatever it may be, and my office goes through the ropes of the in-rem foreclosures. And it provides to the property owner a period of time to redeem by paying the taxes, and that's really the primary purpose of it. But if they don't, the property vests into the township by the in-rem foreclosure. This particular property was one of many. I don't know if you can go out and look at every property. I don't know how much that would cost and whether you do a phase 1 environmental or whatever it is. But this particular property had a fair assessed value. And it had a structure on it so far as the property record cards were concerned. So in the last round of in-rem foreclosures, we took title to the property. When we learned that there were tenants in the property, we received photographs and statements from Frank Primavera, which indicated to me and to you, Roger, and to you, Michael, and I don't forget if Bob was there or not for that meeting, that this was a dangerous situation. Through the process of in-rem foreclosure, we had essentially squatters in a home that we owned, and the home was unsafe. Forget what was in the yard. We had 2 people living in a house that presented an absolute liability and an absolute catastrophe could have happened.
Yeah, fire.
So what we did is we made contact with these folks, and through the good services of the County of Atlantic, do you remember that gentleman's name?
Yeah, McLernan, John McLernan.
What a wonderful employee
John.
this guy is.
He's a great guy.
I spoke to him at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He was out there the next morning at 9 in the morning, and within a couple of days he found shelter for these folks, and a shelter which would take their dogs as well. That alleviated an imminent hazard, a peril, that would have carried with it a price tag well beyond what we're talking about, should something have happened. So we went through the exercise of doing the notices, and there's 2 different kinds, and we researched it, and we did it right, and fortunately we were able to alleviate that problem. Now, having said that, there are situations where you take property through the in-rem foreclosure, and it's not an optimal piece of property.
It's not a what kind?
Optimal.
Optimal. Okay, I got it.
So what we do is we take the properties and we sell them. And what you're going to have here, you're going to clear this property, you're going to tear down the building, and you're going to sell the property. And hopefully, you're going to get more than your taxes and more than what it costs to clean it up. That's the hope. But either way, from the moment you took title, you had a duty for personal safety. And you did it swiftly, and you did it right.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
My understanding of an environmental assessment is for the whole property. Can you clarify that, or do we need to redo the proposal?
No, I don't have a copy of the proposal in front of me, but based on my conversations with Mr. Jacobs and the mayor who had gone out there and looked at it, and the aerial photographs, we're going to evaluate the entire property. I believe he's going to go out there with a magnetometer and check for underground storage tanks. He's going to do a history of the site, do a well search. It's not just, originally the proposal was going to be written as just an evaluation of the structure for demolition, the way we did on Phillips Avenue and Market Street. This is different because this is a 1.9 acre piece of property that may have other issues associated with it. That's why it was a preliminary assessment and just not a hazardous material survey for the dwelling. So based on what we encounter when we go out there and based on the evaluation, the record search and what have you, then we'll determine if any additional work will be required. But it's not just for the structure, it is for the entire property.
Isn't that part of your normal process if you're asked to go out and view a property like this, to evaluate it, to see if it needs to be looked at as a whole as opposed to just the structural portion of it?
Yeah, it depends on the property. I mean, when they did the evaluation of Market Street and Phillips Avenue, they also went out there with a magnetometer, but they were much smaller parcels. And when they went out there to Phillips Avenue, they encountered what turned out later to be
The septic tank.
a septic tank, but it was a steel tank, which we originally thought was a UST. And when they went out to the Market Street site, there was no indication of any USTs.
Good, thank you.
And with those two, they were two residential dwellings with presumably no adverse activity, whereas the property out on Beacon Avenue, it appears that some things have gone on that need to be further investigated.
Some people
what's
wear
a
their cars out
UST?
and they just go park them in the back, and that's what was explained to me is what had been going on over the decades at that location.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
What is a UST?
Underground
Oh, I'm
storage
sorry, Mr. Gishard, an underground storage tank.
Do you have a,
Everything has an acronym, unfortunately.
Mrs. Anderson, can we have a roll call, please?
does it have one, or you don't know?
We haven't gotten that far, Mrs. Link, to determine that yet.
Okay.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes,
Mayor Silver?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item D, accept Remington and Vernick's proposal for the 2014 road patching program, engineering inspection, contract administration services at a cost not to exceed $11,900 with funding to come from bond ordinance 1713-2012.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just had a,
in road patching, are you, saying it's a more sophisticated way of taking care of a hole in the ground, or is it just filling it with asphalt and moving on?
What we're going to do is the deteriorated areas will be milled up. We'll evaluate the subgrade at that time. If the subgrade is unsuitable, it'll be excavated out. We'll put dense graded aggregate underneath and then repave them.
Okay, so it's not just sending a crew around them?
Section.
but-
No, it's not a pothole patching. Basically, what it is it's to repair the area, and also you'll recognize a cost savings because some of these roadways, Public Works visits frequently to deal with repairs and pothole patching. So when these patches are done, there'll be a permanent patch, and it'll actually save operating budget money for Public Works to go out and constantly be filling them with.
Yeah,
Are they like
I
50
was
feet
pointing
long?
this out because, I know what a patch is, what you're talking about, but to cost that kind of money, it really is involved. It is not, as I just said.
No, it's more of a permanent type repair. It's not just filling a pothole.
Is this what you're doing in Harding Lakes? Because I was noticing some long, like 50-foot patches yesterday when I was there.
No. Where did you notice those patches?
I was on a lot of streets, I don't know.
They could have been, I believe it was on Quinn Avenue, the gas company opened
It
up
was
a brand-new
Quinn.
road,
It was Quinn.
and they came in and milled out the area we had recently paved and repaved it. No, this is different. This is similar to what we did on Misper Road. remember the areas in Mizpah Road where we had
Long
some
stretch.
large-scale areas? One of the roadways we looked at was Holly Street, and Holly Street has some similar areas to Mizpah Road. But it's larger scale patch. There are some small ones, because there are some isolated small areas, but it's a larger scale patching program.
Yeah, I note in this, in your letter here, you pointed out 3 areas. Is this funding limited to those 3 areas?
It probably won't cover all of them, Mr. Gishard.
It will not cover all those 3 areas?
That's correct. There's a limited budget for the patching program, and dependent upon how much subgrade has to be excavated and replaced, that'll sort of determine how much we're able to do. And what we're going to do is we'll probably estimate how much subgrade needs to be replaced and put that in the bid as an if and where directed. The less subgrade we have to remove, the more patching we can do, but you won't be able to determine that until the areas are milled up. So
Obviously, you've done some surveying to come up with these 3 areas as areas that need this particular work. I'm sure there are many others.
certainly.
Yeah, well, are these the 3 worst? Is that,
These were the 3 streets that the township has decided to focus on: Holly Street, Mizpah Road, and Dr. Dennis Foreman Drive.
As part of like a pavement management plan?
Basically, these are 3 of the streets that are in the worst shape, have the largest areas of deterioration. And I went out with Mr. Nolan, we measured up all the areas on these 3 streets. But my guess is the estimate is going to far exceed the amount of budgeting, and we'll probably have to scale back. We probably will not be able to do all of the patching work on these 3 streets.
Good.
And
What's the overlap with Malaga Road? If we're applying,
There were only 3 small areas, Mrs. Dix, that we picked on Malaga Road because they're in really, really bad shape. And this is just a temporary repair, and they weren't extremely large, but they were extremely deteriorated.
but isn't that what we're going for this item B, the trust aid, the municipal aid?
Correct, but the application is due October 14th. We probably won't hear till spring, summer, which means construction won't take place till next summer.
Is this that you're talking about patching going to be part of that program, or it's a different section?
A portion of it will be. I think there were 3 locations that we picked on Malaga Road, and I think 1 or 2 of them were in the area that would be encompassed by the new reconstruction.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob. Mrs. Anderson, could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
yes?
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silver?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to ask one more question.
Go ahead.
On that. Just with regard to prioritization based on, after the assessment, how do we decide where and when to spend the money? I'm not sure what or how you're going to do that, but the one thing that comes to mind for those 3 roads that are identified is Holly Street. In particular, from the firemen, we've heard complaints before because of the condition of the road, and it's such a thoroughfare between Cologne and Laureldale, being able to respond and back each other up, that it does, impact the trucks.
Right.
So I would think that, barring any other information that I don't have, that would weigh kind of heavily on Holly as a high priority item, because of, again, the savings we would achieve by mitigating issues with the fire trucks.
Correct. I had proposed to make the entire Holly Street part of the program. I think we have enough funds to do all of Holly Street.
Okay.
And then we can discuss which one we want to prioritize after
Okay,
that.
Good.
great.
Thank you. Okay, item 6 was deleted. Item 7, approve contract change orders. Change order number 1 to Town Hall Auxiliary Parking Lot, contract as recommended by Robert J. Smith, Township Engineer, on August the 14th, 2014. Net increase, $1,120.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Mayor, just a quick note in the parking lot. I got a call or an email from Atlantic City Electric. They may be in this week to put up or start putting up the light fixtures for the parking lot.
Great.
That's good. It's looking great. Thank you. Item number 8, the consent agenda.
I'll move 8A through O on the additions.
Second?
The motion is second. Any questions or comments to that?
Before you vote on that, Mr. Philippone is in the audience, and I believe his concern is 8H. If you had any specific questions about that that were not already answered, I'm sure he would be able to do so.
They didn't have any, Bob, whatsoever.
There you go.
Place to go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Tough night for you, Steve.
I know it's hard, but you can withstand it. Thank you. Item number 9, personnel. Appoint Joseph Natale as part-time violations clerk at $14.41 per hour effective September 9, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes?
Miss Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
B, accept the resignation of Doug Hand from the Veterans Advisory Board effective August the 21st, 2014. The term expires 12/31st, 2015. Let me just say this. It's very unfortunate that Doug at this time has decided to resign. He brought a lot to the board. The many times that I attended the meetings, he was part of that group that was very instrumental in bringing forth the Honor and Remember program, as you know well, Rodney. And I'm sure he'll be missed, Nicole. I think you realize that and feel the same as do some of the other members. So I just want to know, I would vote to accept this with regret. And
So
can we-
moved.
And can we send him a
And I-
letter too?
Yeah, and I would second the mayor's comments. He was also the deputy
The vice chair.
chair, the vice chair, excuse me.
Did you second my motion?
Yeah,
Yes, he did.
Okay, I thought so.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Reluctantly, aye.
Yeah, really.
You're reluctant, but
Only
I know.
because he wants it.
I hear you.
I sent him a letter actually asking him if he'd reconsider, but
I hear you. Maybe he'll pop into a meeting every now and then. Approvals, August 18, 2014, regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, August the 18th, 2014, executive session minutes.
So moved.
second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments to the motion?
Aye.
Oh, thank you.
sorry.
That's
I'm
all right,
sorry.
Elaine. I know you're ready for it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, payroll and bills totaling $7,529,599.38.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Any questions or comments? Can we have a call on that? Mrs. Anderson, please.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Miss Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Reports, Mr. Administrator.
Nothing to add to my written report, Mayor.
Mr. Solicitor.
Nothing?
That leaves you, Bob.
Well, I'm a conformist, so I'll follow suit. Nothing to add.
Township Committee. Judy?
I have a few things. I did stop by the Cove on Memorial Day, and there was a fair number of people there, not as many as I expected.
You mean Labor Day?
I'm sorry, Memorial Day. Labor Day, I'm sorry.
I'm going back to in time.
Yeah, Labor Day, excuse
Thank
me.
you.
And they said that, basically, we've had a lot of people who are regulars, who come on a daily basis, and of course, they would like to see the 2 more days open. They also commented that people would come and say, is this the free day? And meaning the 2 days that, we didn't have a lifeguard on. And so some people are focusing on that free day of coming. A lot of people did miss the hot dog stand. Of course, I had to say that. And the Good Humor Man, or is it Mr. Softy, the one who used to
Jack
come
and
around
Jill.
all the time? They were missing that. But overall, everything went very, very well. And, it was successful. Summer, we'll get the statistics on it next meeting, Ingrid has assured me. We had a a visit to Oakrest after the raising of the flag, which was fantastic. The Veterans Advisory Board voted, and Rodney was there, and he also, what else did you
The
give
mayor
him?
was there also.
The POW?
Yeah, the PFW MIA flag, yes.
And that was something to be said for our Veterans Advisory Board. And then we also designated a receptacle for the disposal of flags. And I'm not sure if many people realize that flags are disposed of in a special way. And I'd like to, again, reiterate that this special receptacle is at the VFW. It was painted and donated by the township, and is a great place to put your used flag, and then there'll be a ceremony on how to, on their disposal. One other thing that I thought was really neat, and I know that our people work hard at making the Cove a fun place for people, but I did see in the Current a article about DARE doing a Special Olympics at the lake over there, and they were doing a tug of war and having relays, and everyone helped, the lifeguards, the parents, the Kiwanis, the Municipal Alliance. I thought that would be a real fun event to maybe consider for next year. So that I would like to see a little more excitement at the Cove. So that's it.
Thank you. Aileen?
On a happy note, Mayor Lisitsky's in the back row. We are going to be having our Oakrest reunion on Friday night and Saturday night as the first four-year graduating class of Oakrest, and we all note that today's the first 90-degree day in over 8 weeks, and the kids had to go back to school with no air conditioning, but at any rate, the reunion is something everyone's looking forward to. I think more than half the class is showing up for it. On difficult topics, coin drops. We approve, Bob Sandman, by ordinance, we approve permits to people, to different organizations to apply for state highway and county road opening permits to stand on the side of the road and collect money. My question is, do the groups that get permission to do a coin drop, are they then required to bring in their state highway or county highway permit, maybe put it on file with Mrs. Anderson? And if not, maybe we need to.
I don't know the answer to that as I sit here. I know they're obligated to get approvals, at least from the county level.
And from the state office.
How the
Chief,
procedure,
do you know? Come on up, Bob, if you don't mind, at the same time while you're talking.
not only don't I mind, I appreciate it.
I know you were, and that's unusual, extremely unusual.
Once, for state and county, once we state we have no objection to them applying for it, that's it. We have no other contact with them with regard to the permit itself. It's up to them to go ahead and get it and then have it in their possession if we do an inspection.
Is it more prudent, Sandman, for not bypassing the chief, but this is an insurance question, is it prudent that we should have the copies filed here so we're assured that everybody is doing exactly what they were supposed to do? Because if they're standing in the roads with our approval and not the rest of it, there's a concern for liability on us being the Township of Hamilton.
I would say yes.
So
I would say that would be prudent, sure.
would it take just a SOP to say from now on you have to give us a copy of the permit as opposed to an ordinance amendment?
It would take a letter from the clerk's office with some follow-up.
I know they have to have liability insurance to the tune of about $600.
Yeah, but we should have the permit so we know they got the permission to be in the state highway. That's the point.
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, they have to
They
fill
don't,
out.
but they don't copy us here.
But
I
if
don't know.
we give
Yeah, They
the-
have to fill out an application and.
We just make sure they have the hold harmless agreement.
Exactly.
They have their insurance,
There's no
that the
risk.
police have reviewed the application and don't have any fault to find with the way they're laying it out. The intersections were all approved by ordinance or resolution, and we just say we have no objection, and if the state or the county gives them permission to be there, we're not giving them permission to do anything. We're
Right.
just saying we don't care if the state or the county gives them the permit.
And there's no insurance risk because of the hold harmless agreement.
What?
There's no insurance risk because of the hold harmless
Right,
agreement that
and
we
the-
require.
And the $1 million life insurance, or, yeah,
Life
life
insurance?
Bob, you're
Who's the
smiling.
beneficiary?
$1 million life insurance.
Hey,
Now, the other thing too,
Labor Day,
Chief,
Memorial Day.
your personnel on the street, do they do check periodically to make sure they're wearing the proper safety alert equipment, such as the vest and? it's-
Yes, they do drive by the coin drops to make sure they're not using cones out there, channeling traffic, and also that they're wearing the appropriate gear. As far as actual inspections go,
I
that happens infrequently.
They have not asked to say, like I know from at my gas company time, when they're digging a hole in the street, that state highway opening permit is in the truck of the person who's doing the digging, whether it's a gas company or a vendor for the gas company. They have the permit with them in the truck. Do we ever stop and ask these agencies, whoever they may be, let me see your permit?
Rarely. We don't have, to be candid with you, we don't have a lot of time to go out and do those inspections. If there's an issue, we'll go out there, and at that time, the officer may ask for the permit, ask, how they're actually handling the intersection, whether or not they're being safe. To be honest with you, since we revised the ordinance, we really haven't gotten a lot of complaints about coin
It's
drops.
select locations too,
Yeah.
All right.
okay?
Yep. The next item I had on my list was, when we had the tax assessor visit us, I believe it was July of 2013, he gave us an opinion of what we could expect when we did the compliance plan. In view of everything that's going on, I would like to have a report, hopefully at the next meeting. What does the tax assessor project? If he could do it for the compliance plan, what's his projection on the reassessment and the impact to our ratables, i.e. the then spin-off is the impact to the future tax revenues? This is a revenue issue that I'm looking at.
I don't think he has that information yet. I sat with him during the week, and he said it'll be a while before he has that, so he could establish all of that. Your request is not out of the ordinary, but maybe next meeting might be too soon. Would you also ask him then, at what point in time before the end of the year could he come before committee and reply to some of those inquiries that Committeewoman Dix made?
Yeah, he already reached out to me and said that he thought we should do that, so.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I think that since we had the heads up for the compliance plan, we need a heads up now on a revenue impact. And that's the reason I asked that.
But a
All right.
reassessment is revenue neutral.
It will be.
Right.
A reassessment's
No,
revenue neutral.
no.
Compliance plan's not.
The impact that I'm concerned about is when he said doing the compliance plan and reducing assessments, that he was projecting the revenue loss of tax dollars would be $750,000
Yes.
to $1 million based on the reduced assessments. We were lucky, and I think the number is $642,000, which triggered a 3-cent tax increase this year.
The
That's
appeals.
my memory of the.
Appeals.
No, not appeals, the
Appeals.
compliance plan. The compliance plan. So what I'm getting at is, we have whatever the tax base is. If the reassessment brings, let's just say that the tax base is $2 billion. If we do a reassessment and we come in at, not $2 billion, but $1.8 billion, the experts in this building can do that calculation of what that 200 million loss of ratables is going to cost us in lost revenue, which translates to tax increase.
Arlene,
That's where my
can I
mind is.
interrupt you for a minute?
Sorry, no, go
Okay,
ahead.
because this all should be perhaps on the agenda. We should all be seeing several papers about it so that we can dispute this. This is, to my mind, not a comment. It is a huge issue that should be on the agenda.
That's exactly why I brought it up, Judy, so they know that I'm asking these questions, they can prepare answers, and we can then list it on the agenda and come back.
No, but you're putting everybody on the spot.
I'm not putting anybody on the spot.
Yes, you are.
I've been told to bring things up under Township Committee comments. You're telling me not to. So
I am saying that this type of comment has a lot of ramifications.
Has a lot of what?
And should be, considered, with much, comments from our tax assessor and, so we're all on the same level.
I agree with you. That's why I brought it up. That's why Roger just said he's sitting privately talking to the tax assessor. So let's bring it out so we all hear it.
If I might say so, this is part of our normal process. That normal process, the tax assessor will make his report. He will work with the finance department. He will work with the administrator, and they will come before the township committee and give a report. That's part of a routine way of doing business. There's no other way to do it.
When's the last time we had a reassessment that this is a routine?
And
The
I don't
answer
sit
is no.
No, this is
privately,
the
but I might
way,
go in and
it
ask him a
is the
question.
order
When do you
upon
think you'll have
which
the
you
information
do
ready?
something.
That's about it.
This is not something
We're not
that's going to be
hiding
done in
anything.
secret.
I
It's
didn't
gonna-
say you were hiding anything. I'm saying we need to have this information available.
And we all understand that, and we plan to have it available.
What else do you have, Aileen?
No, that was it. I said that was the last item.
Thank you. Rodney?
Excuse me, I'd just like to add a couple of comments on the August 21st flag ceremony and the flag disposal ceremony. As part of that, we had a nice little crowd there with the principal of Oakcrest and the superintendent of schools and the mayor and others. And one of the outcomes of that was just a brief tour of the facility. And I must say, I don't know how many of you have been to the school lately, but there's really been some tremendous changes in a relatively short period of time. The indoor courts, the inside courts have been cleaned up. The inside of the building has been repainted, and it looks beautiful. And the enthusiasm of the staff and the students, I was really impressed with. So they're making some positive changes over there, which I think we can all be proud of. And by the way, the flagpole was just one of the things. When the superintendent first came to the school, the first thing he noted was a rusty flagpole, and he said that he didn't feel the flagpole should symbolize our pride in our community and the country and whatnot, and that needs to be changed. So he changed it, and he also called actually Bob Campbell, asking him if he could find a flag, and Bob contacted the township, and the flag was donated, and it was a very nice ceremony. Following that, the flag disposal ceremony, that was brought about by a township resident, Mrs. Batchinger, who inquired, I guess, once again, of someone knowledgeable in Veterans Affairs, and in the case it was Bob Campbell, asking or noting that we didn't have appropriate facilities for disposal. So Bob immediately made a number of calls. He got the township provided paint, and Frank Williams, who's a veteran, painted the can, and it's very nice. It's painted like an American flag. It's behind the VFW building. So we now have a place where we can properly dispose of flags. It's very nice, very in a community effort. My comment, I spent a week in Orlando attending a convention for the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, of which I'm a member.
Is that the new term for vacation?
Well, let me tell you. You say vacation. I didn't
I'm
get.
just kidding, Rodney.
Didn't get any time to see Orlando.
The convention is never a
And
vacation.
I also went down there thinking I didn't need any long sleeve shirts, and nor did I need
I'm sure you
any
did.
jackets or
Make that
anything.
mistake.
But I sat in that convention hall and froze. It was so cold, I had to run up and get a nightgown because that's all I had, and come back downstairs and attend the convention.
I would have loved to.
Yeah.
I would have loved to.
We had, this is the first time I've attended a fair with over 1,000 people who probably have an average age of 70 plus. It was a very interesting experience. These are people from all around the country with all kinds of skills and knowledge and with a commitment to try to improve things. It was a very interesting affair, which anybody who's interested, I'd be glad to talk to about. Just want to remind you there will be a 9/11 ceremony on 9/11. It'll be in Memorial Park, and certainly encourage all who can to attend. I think last year, Reverend Ash has put these together, and last year was supposed to be the last year, but there was such interest in it that he decided to continue. So we're having another ceremony on the 11th in the Memorial Park, and the time was 7 o'clock, right. Oh, and just the Cove. Yeah, the Cove I thought went very well this year. I only had occasion to get my grandkids over there once, and unfortunately, when I went over there, the lifeguard took a fall and hurt herself. Hopefully, she's recovered. She's fine. That's great. But it was very nice. It would have been nice to have some snacks out there, but it was nice anyway as it was. And job well done. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up the thing about the 9/11 ceremony. Just going to read you something real quick here. On behalf of Governor Christie, the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, the DCA, I am pleased to inform you that the Township of Hamilton has been approved to receive Phase 2 of the Post-Sandy Planning Assistance Grants up to the total amount of $96,200. The award will provide Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery funds to prepare the following deliverables. 1, prepare a preliminary investigation and redevelopment plan for historic Mays Landing to the tune of $48,000. 2, prepare a historic Mays Landing neighborhood plan for $48,200. So I think this is significant. I think it's something that we should feel good about in the community, and obviously it's nice to receive that type of funding. And just received a letter in the last day or two, so it's good news. With that, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public wish to speak? Please.
I guess Amy didn't have any
Did you get anything for it?
Geez, I apologize. Excuse me. No, I apologize, you know, I forgot all about her, and I shouldn't. I apologize.
It's because
to you.
I'm not in the right age group, right?
No, it has
No,
nothing
okay.
to do with that. You're
I
getting
know.
there.
You're saving
You're
the.
getting there.
You were saving the best for last. I
You
know.
got it. I apologize to both of you.
I'm glad Rodney mentioned 9/11, and I know, Mr. Mayor, you're doing a lot of work with that. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. I wanted to just make sure that we mention, because it is coming up, we did a resolution in support of some things having to do with the Wine and Food Festival at Lake Lenape Park, put on by our Mays Landing Merchants Association. John's here. I'm sure he's going to say something about it, but just a wonderful event coming our way on September 27th and 28th. And, you know, Rodney, just kind of echoing your comments about the work Oakcrest is doing, and I think the superintendent, John Keenan, who has come in, is doing a phenomenal job already, and partnering with Mr. Money, who's been the acting principal there, as well as the administration and staff there. Seems to be kind of just a recommitment to the school and to the community, and the willingness to partner. And we've already talked about the welcome wagon, but one of the other things, you know, they raised to our attention was that back to school night was scheduled on September 11th. And we mentioned we were having our ceremony, so they moved back to school night and then sent kids to volunteer for the 9/11 ceremony. So really just taking the opportunities to partner, which is great. We've given them information on the flagpole or the utility pole signs, and they want to spruce up their signs not only around their campus, but potentially put some on our main street, just as we've offered to our businesses. So just so many positive things going on, which makes me a proud alumna, and I know many of us in here are as well. And with that, I just want to wish everybody a happy and prosperous back-to-school time this week. I'm very happy because now I can stop listening to my mother talk about how horrible it is that she has to go back to school. She's a principal. And I tell her, us working folk who work through the summer are glad to stop listening to you guys say that. So, so happy back to school to everybody. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? That's done. Excuse me, now, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Township Committee. My name is Melissa Davenport, and I am a resident on Pennington Avenue. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Sometimes us residents have to end up coming before Township Committee because we find the process of dealing with certain departments within the township frustrating and exasperating and confusing. And I'm before you tonight because of some things that had happened on my street recently that have me really concerned. Earlier, I heard words like fairness and equity put out there. And an incident I'd like to put for you is regarding the property maintenance ordinance that our township has that I feel is not fairly or equitably administered. On the other end of my block, as you may or may not know, Pennington Avenue is divided in half. It's a dead-end street. On my end, I'm on the north end coming off of Main Street. We've had a property on our street that we have been before you in person. Mayor Silva, when you were on Township Committee before, I and my other neighbors came before you. We have been to the business administrator's office. We have been to the building inspector's office. And this is a matter that has been going on for almost 18 years. We have a property on our street that is basically abandoned. It's boarded up, it's overgrown. It has probably rodents in it, I'm not sure about that, but we know for a fact it has raccoons and possums living in it. The property at one point had water running in the basement, flooded the basement, and it's up to the local residents to call the municipality and let them know that the basement was flooded. The electric was shorting out, fire alarms are going off, all kinds of things go on. At one point, there was even squatters in the building. Well, that's been a couple of years ago. The township has made efforts occasionally to take care of this. But I'd like to comment on the fact that something that's come before me on the other end of Pennington Avenue that recently was brought to my notice. There's a family there that after the death of a parent, the building inspector's office was out there doing an inspection for a property that had work with a permit doing on it next door. And while they were there, they noticed some issues with the property. So, and this came directly from a homeowner, the owner, so this is not second, third, or fourth hand that I'm telling you about. It's my opinion as a resident of Pennington Avenue that the building inspector's office and the property maintenance officer has gone after this homeowner in less than 8 months and actually is taking them to court. They have a court date. They have been notified in writing, they have been talked to over the phone, visited in person. The building inspector's office refuses to return phone calls, and there has been no leniency. There's been no offer to work with this person, even though this person's made an effort to show every effort that they're trying to bring a property in compliance with the property maintenance code. And yet this township has allowed a property on my end of the street, 1 block away, sit in the condition it's in. And I think just about every one of you has been on my street and knows what property I'm talking about for almost 18 years. Where is this fair? Where is this equitable? And when is this township going to stand up and do to this absentee property owner, who now the township says they can't get a hold of? But I know there's ways to do it. There's ways to track addresses. There's ways to track people who own property. When is this township finally going to give my end of the street some relief? Whereas in your supposed fair and equitable fashion, I consider you have bullied and browbeat and drug another homeowner on the other end of the block basically into financial distress in order to force them into court to bring a property up to standard. Now that is my opinion only. Not the opinion of my husband who's here with me tonight, not the opinion of my neighbors. This is simply me. And I'd like each one of you to response. I'd also like to comment that anytime anyone calls to file a complaint, we're told different things. You can call in and file an anonymous complaint, and yet when another person did it recently, they were forced to come into the office and file it in writing, which is correct, which is accurate. Why is it when we talk to one person, you're told one thing, but when you talk to another person, you're told something else? There are ordinances on the books. Why is not every employee in these offices following a
One set of
code, a
rules.
procedure, telling everyone the same
thing.
thing? The follow-up stinks. 18 years. 18 years we have been asking for some help. Now, the owner's probably changed within the 18 years. Understandable. The current owner's been there a long time. I was not prepared to come here tonight. I did this as a last-minute decision. I don't have pictures in front of me. I don't have papers with me. I don't have the lot and block number. But you all know what property it is, and if you don't, come visit our street. I guarantee you, you can't miss it. So I put it before Township Committee, because we're not getting any action from the building inspector's office or property enforcement code officials. We get no follow-up at all, none. They don't come back to us later and say, this is what we're doing, this is the process it's in. It's just if one of us happens to catch them out, they're looking at it to see if anything's done. And by the way, for the members of the public that are here tonight, Township Committee had a company come out and cut down the front lawn, basically, the weeds, the trees. It's almost better to let it grow up and hide the stinking building so we don't have to look at it. And yet I know we can't do that. We have a property maintenance ordinance. But ultimately, in the long run, yes, you put a lien against that property, the taxpayers pay for it ahead of time. It has to come out of the budget somewhere. These companies don't come in and do it for free. So not only am I paying to look at a property on my street, which devalues my home and my neighborhood, and it's urban blight. The state of New Jersey considers it urban blight. I have the privilege of paying for it out of my taxes too, and I'm not happy about it. I'd like a response. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Michael, would you address code enforcement tomorrow morning, please? Would you also look into the situation she was talking about with the other property in terms of constantly being on them and why there's no one at least looking at the properties Ms. Davenport's talking about?
Sure.
Okay, and if we need to get the solicitor involved in it too, to take some action of a nature in which it does, 18 years is too long, I agree. 7 years is too long.
Mr.
1 year sometimes is too much. You have a picture of it, don't you?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can I
Please.
respond? So funny, Melissa, that you're bringing this up. I actually have a picture of that property right here. I have all the lot and block information about that property right here. And I want to respond to two things, because I'm really glad that you're bringing this up. And the reason I say that is because you display a lot of courage, and we know that you do that on many other things, but a lot of courage that other people will not do. And I can tell you that we have heard, and I think many of us have heard, complaints with regard to code enforcement, property maintenance, the construction office, in terms of the inconsistencies, and just those kind of things. And many people are afraid to step forward and give we'll call it a complaint, but in many times it's really honestly about constructive feedback to make our processes better, more efficient, and things like that. But people are very reluctant and afraid to do so because they're afraid one day they're going to need an inspection, and they don't want, any kind of reprieve to come from a complaint. And it's sad that that's like that, but I always try to encourage people, come forward, make the issue known so that we can improve what we can't do anything without, some of that kind of official documentation, I guess you would say. So I think it takes a lot of courage, and I appreciate that you're coming and putting it on the record. So I really do hope, I'm glad you said, Mr. Mayor, that we will address the inconsistent information that's given, because that is what I hear time and time again, that we will address the lack of education of the staff on the ordinances, and that we will address the inconsistencies in terms of property maintenance, because I do hear that time and time again.
I agree.
The notion of kind of going after somebody and kind of picking on them, hear that on a regular basis as well. So I really appreciate you bringing it up. The second side that I want to respond to about the property, the condemned property on your side of the street, we've had some people, I've had a couple of business owners approach me about interest on Main Street. And Cheryl can attest to it because she saw me out there 7 a.m. with John Kurtz and Freeholder Pauls. And we just kind of took a walk on Main Street, looking at some of the issues that we had heard from businesses who want to come but are reluctant because of various issues. So we walked around and we were looking for opportunities to remedy some of those issues. And, looking around at, of course, parking in the Main Street area. We were looking at, what do we have? Is it well lit? Is it taken care of? What kind of street is it on? Just those kind of basic things. And we walked down the street and that property, came to my mind again. So I asked for all of the information with regard to the property, just as a start, informal information gathering to see, do we have opportunity, did we address something in some of our strategic plans that we did, that we can pull on and maybe do something with that as a township, because the property owner has very obviously been, unresponsive and neglectful of that, unfortunately, what was a beautiful property, historic property. So, like I said, I've done some informal information gathering, hoping between, again, work we've done, work that will be coming with the post-Sandy grant that we just got, and again, this interest that we're getting from some business owners who may be willing to invest in some of this area, that we might be able to really do something here. So, we have the merchants a part of that conversation. Like I said, the freeholder came down to be a part of the conversation. We even spoke with Chris Brown, who was here earlier, about some of the elements there. So, we hear you. It's not lost. It's not forgotten. So I know I have it, and I'm working on something. So that's my response, Mr. Mayor. Sorry it was long-winded.
If I might comment. Yes, I too am aware of the building. I think it's the building we're talking about. You mentioned historic building. I've been down there. I've seen it. It certainly has been a problem to me, and it's a problem that needs to be solved. And by the way, that's not the only building, as you may know, that falls into that category, and not the only historic building that falls into that category. And regarding the unequal treatment of people, I've certainly heard a lot of that also, and I don't know that I have the total answer. I know I've had people tell me that the township came and cut their grass down, and it wasn't the 10 feet inches that's required, whereas in other places it is, and it hasn't been done. I know I've heard that, and it's tough to evaluate them sometimes because both sides will claim their side is correct. But yes, we hear you. It is a problem, and I would certainly like to have it resolved also. It's been a long time. And it's an issue that we need to find a resolution to, because there are other areas affected by like this also. Thank you.
Roger. Melissa, on tonight's agenda, there's a 1,500, it's at the bottom of the agenda of page 1, $1,544.36. I believe that block and lot is the property you're talking about, because I did look them up today. So if you're saying they cut the front yard grass and it cost $1,500, I too would be concerned, but I think they must have cut and done more than just the front yard. The only way we'll know is if we look at that purchase order, we'll know what they charged for. But I hear you, because I have to echo what Rodney and Amy have said, the complaints I'm hearing too. We need to get on the same page, and I would hope that Judy and I being the Smart Growth Committee, I think we need to sit down with Phil and have some conversation about this. And there needs to be one set of rules that applies to everybody. Thank you.
Cheryl?
As you know, Cheryl Kelly. I live on Pennington Avenue. Property is right across the street from me, so I look at it every day. I want to see something done with it, and like Melissa said, sometimes it's nicer for it to grow up because I can't see it. I mean, unfortunately, they got a park across the street from me. But there are rodents, there are possums, there's raccoons. One was walking up my step one morning when I was going out. I wasn't happy with that, and it went right up the tree and then gone. But anyhow, Amy said something about condemned property. That
It's not
property has not been condemned, to my knowledge.
Okay.
But I wish it would be, because it does affect our property values. And, you know, if it was legally condemned, I believe that does have an effect on us, in one way or the other. That's one thing. So whatever you guys can do, we appreciate it, really. The other thing is, I'd like to bring up the fact that the Historic Society is having an Art in the Park craft show September 20th.
Yeah, I'm glad you said something, Cheryl, because on the special projects list, it was listed as tentatively for September 27th, and I didn't want to bring it up because it said tentative, so.
September 20th.
Okay, great.
And,
Yeah, I have it. 9 to 4, is it? 9 to 4, Cheryl?
9 to 4.
9 to 4, thank you.
Cheryl?
Also, the tree lighting ceremony, will that
Yes,
be?
yes,
That's
yes.
going to be addressed?
Yes.
Okay, I want to be sure.
Now, do you want to say anything that Cheryl and I had an opportunity during the week last week to ride to Camden with several members of the Board of Education to look at properties that the Volunteers of America have rehabbed, and of course there's a proposal that's supposed to come before the school board to buy the Duberson School. Is that correct?
Correct.
And obviously, that's pretty much all we have now, and I think they were looking at it in terms of converting it. And what we did when we wrote as observers just to get information so that we would understand what was going to happen or what could be proposed. And I think once that presentation goes before the school board, I think the community has to look at it in terms of, one, is whatever they propose right for that neighborhood and that particular building in that particular time frame, and does it make sense in the long run to try to preserve that building and expand it a little bit to have it fit into the overall community plan?
They did talk about needing to maybe expand to make
Yeah.
it work, you know.
So we had an eye-opener that
We
night,
don't
though.
know.
Didn't we have an eye-opener going to that community?
Oh, yeah, we did. I don't know whether it was good or bad. We did have an eye-opener, yeah.
We visited
It was very, what they showed us was wonderful.
we visited a homeless veterans facility that they
Right.
constructed. We visited a homeless building, and we
Right.
also visited a senior building. One thing about this organization, it's very professionally run, and the key to any type of situation that they contemplate to put in a community, it probably would be very well staffed and watched. So many times in other facilities, they don't have the professional staff, the social workers, the building caretakers and everything around the clock. So we'll see where this goes. I mean, I was just,
They basically said, though, it would not, they didn't think it could be restricted to seniors because the county is saturated already.
That's
with
what they
low-income
said.
seniors. Yeah, they're gonna try, but they said basically they didn't think that would be. So I'm anxious to see what they propose, and I hope the public is notified when the school board meeting.
well, I think it's something, the public has to be, and it's something that they have to be included in the overall presentation so that they could see what's going to happen, if it does happen.
It was a nice trip, enjoyed it, so we'll see what happens.
Anyone, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? John?
John Kurtz, President of the Mays Landing Merchants Association, and I have a business on Main Street. First, I'd like to support Melissa and Cheryl in their comments they made tonight, having a business that borders Pennington Avenue and is very interested in what happens on Pennington Avenue. As the Deputy Mayor said, we did have a walk with Will Pauls there, and that was one of the structures we were looking at. There's a lot needs to be done on that street. and could be done from the ideas and things we talked about when we had our walk. I can remember, it's been at least eight years or more that I stood with former Mayor Saccinelli on that street and take a picture in front of that building and discuss it, and it was in the front page of the local papers. And look where we're at, and it's still the same thing. So it's very important that something would happen there. If you want to really shed some light on it, when we have the Ghost Walk and the Christmas lights done in the town, the Christmas walk, and people will not walk down that street to see them because of the way the street looks, the darkness of the lighting, and that building that's falling apart there. That's a sad situation when people can't enjoy things like the Christmas walk and the lighting for people that at the end of the street would like to decorate and show off the Christmas walk and the Ghost Walk. So that is important that we follow through on that. Next, I would just like to mention that we have a couple new businesses shortly, I hope, will be opening in town. One is, they're both members of the Merchants Association. One is Sure Enough Fish, that's going to open in the old Mario's building over at there by McDonald's and back behind CVS. And he's a member of our group. He's having some difficulties getting things worked out to open, but it's going to happen, and he's a good guy. Another thing I'd like to mention, we have a new restaurant opening where the Main Street Cafe closed. You can tell by the history of that building that we've had many owners, different people trying to run it. But I was able to talk to this gentleman that has this property. He has another restaurant in another town, and it's the same name. It's going to be called the Blue Coyote Grill and Restaurant and Grill. The gentleman is a graduate of the Naval Academy at Annapolis. He is 10 years in the Marines, so he's a veteran coming to our community. He has a business plan. That's very important. I had a chance to review it with him. He really has it together, and I think it could be it's going to be a success. And he's working now to get open there. A business plan is important. I can remember when I opened my business over 15 years ago through my accounting firm. I did a business plan, and it showed that was a good location. That's what I needed to do, and it's worked out well for me. Not every person or business that has failed on Main Street, and there's been a few, has failed because of Main Street. A lot of it really is the person that operates the business. They failed to have a business plan. They didn't research things good on whether what they intended to do would work there. And that's something that you have to work together with, along with hopefully Main Street getting redeveloped. And I think that's an important issue to bring up. A reference point would be there was a sports memorabilia shop that opened. And I went down to see him the day that he opened, brought him a plant from the Merchants Association, welcomed him to our business community, and he lasted 9 months. And my question to him when he first opened was, do you have any internet-based business that you're in now that perhaps that's what you're developing on, you're getting large and you need to open a storefront? And his answer was no, that he really didn't have that. It's awful hard today to have a turnkey operation without some kind of business behind you to make that a success, like a Wawa. You open a Wawa, the people come, but that doesn't work everywhere. And I think that's something that the Merchants Association is going to get more involved in as people indicate they'd like to open in town. I think we'll try to set up meetings with them and see if we can discuss what they're going to do and whether or not we can be some assistance to them, and see if they do have a business plan that looks like they'll make it on Main Street. And then on a good note, I'd like to mention that the Wine Festival. It's the 27th and 28th of this month. It's going to be a great event. Every year was a great event for it. It gets bigger every year. This year, we're pleased to announce the addition of international wineries, which is a big deal. They're actually available to us through distributors. So we'll have 12 now. We keep growing from 7 to 9 to now we're at 12, and it's going to make a real nice 2-day event. Excellent food vendors. Everything is upscale. The food is crab cakes, lobster, all kinds of higher-end foods, and it should be really interesting out there. The tickets are available at different businesses in town. They're available at my business. They're available at Anytime Fitness, and they'll also be available at a booth that we'll have set up at the Art in the Park, which I hope everybody gets out to. That's a great event. And Other than that, we hope you come out and enjoy the Wine Fest. It's great. Just keep in mind that the proceeds that we receive from the Wine Fest are put back into the community in the way of donations for our Halloween parade. We donate to a scholarship for someone at the one student at the culinary program for $1,000. And then we put the funds back into our Dickens of a Holiday, which is a small event, but it's liked so much by the community and the kids, we fund it through other events. And then our fall festival. So that's what's coming up, and thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
We also have a new hair salon on Main Street, too.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
We do.
Main Street,
Hair studio.
Hair studio, yeah.
This may be asking a little too much, but I'd like to see Holly Street milled and repaved from Route 50 to Clone Avenue.
Well, that's what we discussed in terms of looking at it for possible patching. That's what we were discussing with the engineer, Jim.
No, not patching, repaved.
Right.
Repave the whole road.
It's 5 miles long, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I know.
When he says patching, they're looking at doing stretches of the road. It could be several, Bob can tell you better. He's sitting right-
Patching is just potholes, that's it.
No,
No, it's
no, it
not.
isn't. That's what I'm trying to explain to you, Jimmy. Bob can tell you, they could be looking at several hundred feet at a stretch where they're going to put a whole new section of road based on the conditions.
Right.
Bob, do you have any figures you could say, anything to Jimmy to make him feel a little better about this?
I don't have any of the figures with me, but I can tell you, it's not just going to be patching potholes. We're going to be cutting out deteriorated sections of the roadway and basically repaving, section paving, for lack of a better term.
You're by the bridge there, it's bad.
There are several locations by the bridge. There's some areas we're going to be going full width for a stretch. There's some areas where it's the edge of the road. There's some areas in the center, but it'll be an extensive patching program.
And finally, I echo what Melissa and Cheryl said about Pennington Street. In fact, maybe the HPC can condemn that building by demolition and neglect.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay? Good
Thanks a
point.
lot.
Thank you.
Roger, when you're done, I have one.
Anyone else in the audience? What were we saying?
I need one more quick minute.
Go ahead.
Wait, do you want us to close public portion?
No, yeah, go ahead. You want to close?
Sure. Motion to close public portion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead.
Oakcrest opened, so school buses are on the road, but the grade school will open on Thursday. And the reason I asked for this minute is the county was working at Park Road and Lenape Avenue today because it was so overgrown and uncut. And it is a serious bus stop for all the kids in the Lenape Avenue, Hudson Street, Ken Skull, 3rd Street area. Maybe Brett could see if we can get Public Works. There's a small stretch, it may be 100 feet, that's township property, that the cartway needs to be cut tomorrow. So when these 5-year-olds are going to the school bus stop at the end of 3rd Street, it's after the White Bridge fence and before the first residential property. It's where you built that berm that's way overgrown, and that's where the kids have to get the bus. So if we could get that squared away, and I don't know if there's any other locations where kids are actually going to be at risk if they have to go in the street. It would be good if we took care of that sooner than later. If I see any, I'll pass the word. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a motion? We're going to executive
Yeah,
session,
motion
right?
Are we going to come back to public or not?
There will be no action
There'll
taken.
be no action.
Do you want to read your thing, Mrs. Anderson?
All right. Be resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session to discuss the matter of state health benefits for elected officials, which is exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. Be it further resolved that the governing body will not reconvene in public session because no action is expected to result from the discussions at this time. Be it further resolved that the results of said executive session shall be made known as soon as the basis for confidentiality is no longer confidential.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.